Still learning the language, this thing. Still trying to learn the language and pronunciations, and there's going to be some pronunciation mistakes in this video, I think, and maybe the next one, and the one after that, until we get this shit dialed in. Anyway, for every academic out there who spent their life buried in dusty tomes trying to untangle every kenning and every half line of Beowulf, there's one character who causes disproportionate grief and fascination. One guy who gets barely a mention in the poem itself, yet fills pages of scholarly analysis. Just fills lots of pages. Why do I write this shit? His name, King Offa. Seriously, he's mentioned like once in passing. And yet, if you pick up a foundational text like this one, the one I'm studying right now, Chambers' Beowulf, an introduction to the study of the poem, this single mention leads to a rabbit hole of pages dedicated to him. The guy has a whole fucking chapter. I mean, what the hell is going on? Why is this background character such a big fucking deal? That's what we're going to unravel here. It's a story of historical mix-ups, monastic mischief, and an enduring, gritty power of heroic legend. Let's start with what Beowulf actually tells us about Offa. It's brief. He pops up as the husband of Queen Thrift. Now, Thrift initially is giving a pretty harsh write-up. She's described as cruel-minded and bane of people's lives. A proper nasty piece of work, apparently. Here's where Offa comes in. He's married to her, his brave Offa status apparently tames her wild ways, and she becomes less cruel. I mean, that's what you want in a woman once you marry her, right? To be less cruel. The poem then goes on for a few more lines to praise Offa himself, honoured far and wide for his generous ways, his fighting spirit, and his far-seeing defence of his homeland. It even links him to a lineage saying, from him sprung Eomer, Eamund's grandson, kinsman of Hemming. This is where we think Tolkien got the name Eomer from. This guy. So that's it. That's a lot. A few lines. That's literally it. And yet, an entire chapter dedicated to him in this particular book on Beowulf poem. He's a good bloke. A brave king, married to a difficult woman, and he sorted her out. Birthed a decent lineage. The immediate logical question then is, why the fuck do scholars lose their minds over this guy? Why does a character who barely registers on the Beowulf radar get an entire chapter, sometimes more, in serious academic works? The answer, as always, is never that simple. And it starts with a classic case of mistaken identity. There are two big Offas in early Anglo-Saxon history, and trust me, getting them mixed up is a rookie error, but one that has had massive implications for Beowulf studies. First up, let's talk about the other Offa, Offa. Offa II, the sequel. This is the formidable king of Mercia, reigning from 757 to 796. This Offa was a proper powerhouse. He commanded immense political and economic sway, and even rubbed shoulders with old Charlemagne himself. He's famous for Offa's dyke, and the massive earthworks, and the foundation of the St. Albans Abbey. But the Offa in Beowulf, that's not him. Not even close. The Beowulf Offa, Offa the First, predates the Mercian namesake by what? 12 generations? That puts him firmly in the 4th century. And we're talking about the Dark Ages, before Anglo-Saxons had even properly settled in England. Offa I was king of the Angles, ruling back when their homeland was in their now... this place, I can't pronounce that. Think pre-migration Germanic world, a crucible of those hard-bitten heroic traditions that eventually trickled down into Old English poetry. This geographical detail is crucial. It places Offa the First in a pre-Christian, purely Germanic heroic tradition. And this, my friends, is where the real intrigue and Chambers' obsession comes from, because Offa I makes some serious waves in other ancient poems. Offa I's true historical significance, the reason he's an absolute unit in the academic world, comes from his starring role in other Germanic heroic poems, most notably Widsith, also written by R.W. Chambers. Thank you, R.W. Chambers. Raymond Wilson, I think his name is. And Widsith, let me tell you, paints a very different, far more epic picture of him than Beowulf ever did. In Widsith, Offa is a legend. He's lauded as, of all those men, the most courageous, and a figure who, having in boyhood won the broadest of kingdoms, he did something truly fucking audacious. He struck a boundary with a single sword against, I always get this fucking word wrong,
Vikings.
I can't pronounce that. But March is now fixed in the Fifildor. This wasn't some treaty. This wasn't a skirmish. This was a king in his youth going 2-on-1 in single sword to establish his territorial claim. This tale of single combat to secure land is the absolute heart of the first legend. But wait, there's more. Two Danish historians, Sven Angson and Saxo Grammaticus, also weigh in on Offa first, giving us even more details about this truly bonkers character. Their accounts, while different in their specifics, paint a picture of a young prince initially seen as dull and speechless. But the reason for him coming off as dull and speechless was to do with this slight against his family, which we'll get to in a second. He decided that until that slight had been remedied, he wasn't going to speak. It was like a vow of silence until this had all been sorted out. Imagine the future hero just sitting there quiet as a mouse. Saxo in particular describes this Offa, or this Offa, emerges from this apparent idiocy to challenge the Saxon king's claim to Denmark. He doesn't just offer to fight the Saxon prince, he demands to fight any chosen champion the prince brings with him. 2-on-1. Because that's how a fucking hero rolls. The climax? Offa, armed with his father's sword, Skrep, S-K-R-E-P, reportedly cleaves one of his antagonists in two with a single brutal blow. But Sven Angson, he adds a crucial piece of the puzzle. He explains why Offa was seemingly dumb and why he insisted on fighting two opponents. Sven argues it was a conscious act to wipe out the stain left upon his family and his nation by their breach of dueling etiquette. What stain are we talking about? Well, there was this incident with two Danes, Keto and Vigo. Their father, Frauvinus, was killed by King Attalus. And these two sons, rather than fighting honorably, attacked Attalus together, 2-on-1. A flagrant violation of sacred fucking laws of dueling, and a deep dishonor. Offa, who was married to their sister, said this was a blight on his family and his people. So, to redeem that honor, to clean up that messy, unsporting behavior, he insisted on fighting his own 2-on-1 duel. A solitary, bloody deed to set things right. This wasn't just winning territory, it was about restoring the soul of his kingdom. These stories, these characters, Fedawaro is Hrothgar's daughter, you moron. Freoven, Vig, Athalas, they pop up in English genealogies and other English poetry. This complex backstory, this narrative of shame and redemption through single combat, this well known in Anglo-Saxon England. This wasn't some obscure Scandinavian myth, this was local legend, part of their heritage. If Offa the First was such a legendary badass, a real one-man wrecking crew, why was his Beowulf appearance such a damp squib? Just a passing mention of him taming his wife. Here's where it gets interesting, and frankly, a bit annoying for academics. Well, it used to be, not so much anymore, because, you know. The prevailing theory is that a monk at St. Albans Abbey, remember, founded by Offa II, wanted to big up his patron king, so he mistakenly or perhaps deliberately attributed unbelievably heroic deeds from Offa I to his much later namesake Offa II. Remember, separated by 12 generations, about 400 years. This historical sleight of hand, this reimagining of the 1-against-2 fight, injected the older, legendary Offa into the historical record of the Mercian king, and because these monks were the ones documenting things, writing chronicles, these borrowed glories became accepted history for a while. And by a while, I mean up until quite recently. This in turn elevated the significance of the singular Beowulfian mention. Scholars working with these later chronicles would then see Offa and immediately think legendary hero, even if Beowulf itself gave them bugger all to go on. It's like confusing Liam Gallagher with Liam Neeson and then attributing the success of Oasis to this guy. That's just wrong. And it doesn't stop there. The queenly connection adds another layer of complexity. The character of Queen Thrith in Beowulf, widely believed to be a literary construct. The name Thrith was possibly inspired by Queen Thrith, Offa II's actual queen. Now, this is pure speculation, but it's delicious speculation, and I like it. The vindictive character attributed to Thrith in the poem, some scholars think it might be a thinly veiled critique, poetic admonition directed to the contemporary Queen Crinfrith, a centuries-old epic poem possibly being used to subtly slag off a current queen. If that's true, it's a ballsy move, because if you're a Queen Crinfrith and your husband is called Offa, and you're reading about a Frith whose husband is called Offa, it's not too much of a stretch to put those two together. You know, it's ballsy, but not subtle in the slightest. Of course, the major sticking point here is that Beowulf was likely conceived before Offa II's reign, so direct contemporary jab might seem anachronistic, but then again, additions, interpretations, and subtle changes were common in oral and early written traditions. It's all part of the glorious, messy world of early medieval literature. We can't prove it, but it's a fucking good theory. So what does all this mean? The story of King Offa isn't just some obscure footnote in the study of Beowulf. It's a powerful, vivid illustration of how history, legend, and even accidental misattribution intertwined to create something new. It reminds us that these ancient texts aren't static artifacts locked away in a glass case. They're living documents, continuously interpreted, reshaped, and at times embellished by those who propagate them. The ghost of Offa I, a king who won a kingdom with a single brutal strike, a man who resurrected his country's honor through his own sacrifice, he continues to echo through the ages. He's a testament to the brutal, beautiful, and complex world that birthed Beowulf. A world where a throwaway line in one poem could open up an entire fucking saga of legendary deeds in another. It's a powerful lesson in how fragile the line between fact and legend can be, especially when you're looking back across 1,000 years. And honestly, it's why delving into these old texts, even the seemingly dull academic ones, can be so damn rewarding. You never know what forgotten bloody hero, what incredible story you're going to dig up. So, the next time someone tells you Beowulf is just a monster and a dragon, tell them about Offa. Tell them about the king who fought a 2-on-1 fight just to restore his people's honor. Tell them about the monk who probably ruined his historical actuary for a bit of royal arse licking. And tell them this is why we still give a shit about these poems. Tell me in the comments what's your favourite bit of historical confusion. Anyway, the YouTube algorithm thinks that you'll like this video. Happy Fridays. Subscribe if you're not subscribed. Like the video if you like the video. And I'll see you in the next one.